So who should buy FANATEC? We know FANATEC is now up for sale in a fire sale. Basically, there's 30 international investors who are interested in buying FANATEC out of insolvency, and FANATEC need money now or they won't make it till Christmas. I've covered this all on the channel before. It all stems from the interview that I had with the CEO of FANATEC, Tom Schackemeyer. But let's get to the point. Who should buy FANATEC and who benefits from this? Now, my perspective is I'm a customer of FANATEC. I buy FANATEC equipment. I'm not an employee and I'm not a shareholder. I'm not the opposite of shareholder. I'm not a shorter. I'm a FANATEC customer. I also buy equipment from other sim racing companies as well. So I want there to be good competition in sim racing. I want to have cool and exciting products that are competitively priced for me to buy. So if you're also in that position, hope you're going to find this video interesting. So let's start off with a competitor of FANATEC. What happens if amongst these 30 international investors who want to buy FANATEC, we have companies like Moser, like Logitech, like Thrustmaster, and they look at FANATEC's valuation, which is basically in the bin, and say, I'll have that, actually, I'll pick it up. I'm not sure any of those would be good for competition. I think there would be a lot of synergies for those companies in buying FANATEC. They'd share a lot of resources, and the technologies and the patents could be very helpful. But I don't think they would support FANATEC in its existing sort of individual product line as has existed up to now. So although it's quite exciting to think, what happens if Moser buy FANATEC? What happens if Logitech buy FANATEC? I just don't really see how you're going to have an independent FANATEC in that situation. I think the stuff that's relevant would be subsumed into the brand that's buying it. That's my opinion anyway. Now, what about brands that are sort of like in the tech space, but kind of tangentially related? What about like Corsair? So we know Corsair have basically invested in FANATEC before. So we know that Corsair own the trademark for FANATEC and own the patents as well. Some patents, we've seen that. And I actually asked Corsair directly, and then answering me a few weeks ago, Corsair said, yes, we own these trademarks and patents. And the reason for that is we gave some money and this was security for that. But we'll give them back to whoever buys FANATEC if it's not us. But if a company like Corsair was to buy FANATEC, or another, what about a company like Asus? Or some other company? I mean, what if someone like Apple was to buy FANATEC? Like Apple want to get into sim racing. They think F1 is huge. They're involved with the F1 movie. FANATEC have the F1 license. What does that mean? We have these big tech companies that know how to do customer service, know how to do big product launches, know how to keep stuff in stock and let customers know when stuff is out of stock and in stock. They can do all the fulfillment. I feel like that would be a better situation than a direct competitor of FANATEC buying FANATEC. I feel then we might actually see an improvement to the current situation and still have competition in the space. In fact, you might think if someone like Apple or Microsoft was to buy, or Sony was to buy FANATEC, it might actually become really dominant. They could really lower the price of the products, get them out to as many people. And to be honest, that sounds great at the beginning for me as a consumer. Maybe, as time progresses, there would be less competition. But at the beginning, lower prices, more equipment sounds great. So that's what happens if a sort of tech company buys FANATEC. What about someone like a hedge fund? So a hedge fund or private equity fund or whatever, an investment company that comes in to invest in a company, change the way it's run and make profit from it. So basically sell it on at a higher price they bought it. Well, at the moment, you're able to buy FANATEC at a low price. So obviously investment funds are going to be interested. But what actually happens if an investment fund buys FANATEC? So imagine you come in, you get rid of the processes and probably the people that you think are not working. You put in your own people. You try and increase the margin on the products. So you try and make them for cheaper and sell them for higher. You make the business more profitable. The business then has a higher valuation. More people want to invest in it. And then you sell it to another company at a higher price and you sold it. Is that going to be good for us as customers? Well, you can imagine the first bit, finding out the bits that aren't working, might well be good for us as customers. But ultimately, the dynamic of the investment fund coming in would be to try and extract more money from us and sort of put less into the product. And I'm not sure you could accuse FANATEC of doing that at the moment. Look at the McLaren GT3 behind me, very reasonably priced. still the favourite wheel for a lot of sim racers. I don't think you see an investment firm doing a product like that, but I might be wrong. Now, what about Thomas Jacomai, the ex-CEO? What happens if he comes in with an offer that basically FANATEC are obliged to sell to him? Because you would say if Thomas Jacomai comes in now with an offer, and we know he's been out in China, maybe with Xiaomi and all these people, if he comes in with an offer that's higher than anyone else, it would all. I don't know whether it would be illegal, or I don't know if there's any way that FANATEC would not be able to sell to him, which is interesting because Thomas Jacomai has been trying to raise funding for a long time. Remember, I got the letter from Thomas Jacomai, and at the end it has like if you want to pledge to buy shares or whatnot, which I didn't think was appropriate to send out without proper sort of like advice on the risks of losing your money, considering a lot of shareholders in FANATEC are probably about to lose their money. I wonder if Thomas Jacomai would do a deal where the current shareholders could pledge more money, but then they would keep their shares. So it's interesting. But what happens if Thomas Jacomai comes back in? So I think if Thomas Jacomai comes back in, he becomes like a messiah at FANATEC. Like, it's really all on his shoulders. He's got no second chances, but he, you know, people may come out and actually support him. So Thomas Jacomai, we may see everywhere with his new product saying, this is a new product, I've designed it, I've had my hands on it, and people may buy it because they buy into that story. And certainly when I went over to FANATEC and interviewed Thomas Jacomai, there's a very interesting story with Thomas. He's a very interesting guy. Like, there's no question about that. He is a character, and it's good to have characters in the space. It's not good to have characters if it means that you order at Black Friday and you don't get your order till like May the next year. That's not good. But Thomas Jacomai coming in could be quite interesting actually. Now, there's some other left field people, but if you are enjoying this video, please make sure you subscribe. We are trying to get to 100k subscribers, and I hope that you're appreciating these videos on FANATEC as we try and think about what this means for us as sim racing customers. But if it's not going to be Thomas, if it's not going to be an investment fund, if it's not going to be a tech company, if it's not going to be a competitor of FANATEC, what about an automotive company? What about someone like Porsche or BMW, a big German car company buying FANATEC and licensing them really closely with their own? It wouldn't even be licensing per se. It would be their own brand products. Like, imagine if BMW buy FANATEC, so that becomes a BMW GT3 wheel. And imagine the brand, the marketing of that. I mean, goodness me, there might be, but these car companies spend so much. You know when you watch car adverts and they're driving through like a city where there's no one there and it's like sunny and there's glass and steel skyscrapers, and it doesn't make skyscrapers, it doesn't make you feel anything. Imagine driving on a BMW licensed wheel that, and you feel like it's. I think a car company could be huge. I honestly think it could happen. So many of them have been obviously in close contact with FANATEC because of the existing licensing deals. And I think we're getting to the point where 30 international investors being involved, that's not enough. That's more than the amount of competitors. I mean, that's, you know, think of people like Asatec or Moser or Logitech or Thrustmaster, all the ones that I've said. It's more than the big tech companies, I think. Obviously, there'll be investment funds, but how many investment funds want to get in this space, I don't know, because it's a very niche space, and I imagine these people at investment funds have no idea about sim racing. Like, genuinely. If you're watching, then get in touch, because I'm worried that an investment fund that has no idea might buy it, and then it's just a disaster. So what about the car companies? So let me know what you think about that. Who do you think would be best buying FANATEC? Very interesting question, and I'll see you next time.